All right. How's everyone doing tonight? I am doing this for the third week in a row. I didn't think I was going to continue this, but it's kind of fun or therapeutic in a way. So give me a second. Let me make sure everything's working here. Yep. I think we're good. So I don't think this is going to be a long uh, stream, but a couple things. First off, I switched how I'm doing this. Instead of sharing my screen, I put a little, try to organize what I wanted to talk about. I threw my logo up on there, which is my, again, I mentioned in my last stream, I'm a Christian anarchist. In fact, I have a website or a blog, christiananarchist.com, which I haven't done much with in the past couple months, to be honest with you. Not necessarily even like trying to promote it. I'm not selling anything. It's just something I did as a hobby, year and a half, 2 years ago. But hold on, let me make sure. Bear with me a second here. But yeah, so hopefully this is working. Anyways, before I get to the serious stuff, I do want to talk about Dave Smith. He is a comedian, podcaster, potential libertarian presidential candidate. But I like his show. He has a podcast called Part of the Problem, and I'm a big fan of his. I've met him before. In fact, I took a picture with him. He seems like a pretty cool guy. And in particular, well, I'll get into the details on this later. Before we dive into that, we got to start with something funny. And I ran across this the other day. This is from, I don't know, a month or two ago. It's just really funny, and every time I watch it, it cracks me up.
That can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
I gotta watch this again. Hang on.
That can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
And watch it again. Watch Kamala Harris. She like nods her head.
In a single word. I was going to excuse me.
So you see her nod her head? Oh shoot. It's so funny. Kamala's like, am I going to be the next president? Mm-hmm. I don't know if Joe Biden's going to make it. Kind of feel bad. It's kind of elder abuse at this point.
That can be defined in a single word. I was going to
All right. That's enough picking on him. All right. Well, after this, I don't need to write it down. I'll remember me at the store. All right. That's enough picking on Joe Biden. It's too easy. It's too easy. I got to figure out how to. Oh, there you go. All right. Complete change of topics. Some funny things that kind of came up this week. I'm sure you guys have seen, if you look at memes at all, there is a meme running around. I think they call this like the bro explaining stuff meme. So it is kind of a funny picture. I have no idea how old this thing is. It looks kind of old. But he has this lady by the neck, and he's explaining something to her. And you've probably seen something. Oh, this is just something I quickly pulled off the internet. But just saying something totally stupid to the chick. And the funny thing is, I just noticed this past week that there's a girl version of this meme. So you may have seen this floating around, and someone said, what is she saying to him? And then the meme started flowing in. Bro, I'm telling you, a Gemini cannot date a Scorpio, bro. They're incompatible When Venus aligns with Saturn, bro, it emits a toxic aura, bro. So it's just, to me, when I saw this, I immediately thought of the other meme. I thought it was funny. And it's just a silly meme flying around on the internet. Well, oh yeah, here's another one. Bro, you don't get it. The crystals have a positive effect, but you need to burn sage to recharge them, bro. It's so stupid, right? Well, NBC News puts out I don't know if they called it a fact check per se, but they put out a article essentially about this meme, saying that the girl explaining meme isn't actually explaining anything. It's like, what are you guys doing? So an image of the impassioned girl yelling into the ear of a guy who appears indifferent to what she's saying has captivated the internet. Well, they go on in the article to say they somehow they tracked this lady down, or maybe this website did, Know Your Meme. If you ever want to look at the origin of a meme, there's a website that attempts to do that. And they interviewed this lady and said she wasn't actually explaining something to him. In fact, she told Know Your Meme, she was just trying to sing a cumbia song. So apparently this was in Argentina, if I remember correctly. But it's like, what a weird thing to write an article about. Like, they're fact-checking memes. So stupid, right? Anyways, I thought that was funny. Moving on to other news that I thought was almost as funny. CNN, and this is a real tweet. This is a real article. I'm not going to go through the article, but next time you stop at a gas station, think of it as a $100 a month tax cut, or maybe a $100 a month raise. This is real. This is real. Someone actually wrote this article. And this is just a screenshot from the thing. I actually pulled this on their website today. Of course, this article right here is dated a couple days ago. Next time, and they say the same thing. Next time you stop there, think of it as a $100 a month tax cut, because apparently from the peak gas prices a month or two ago, they've dropped, and somehow they get about a $100 a month raise per family or per household. So I don't have a great system here to read comments while I'm live. Oh yeah, I'm kind of late on reading those, but anyways, these I don't know who Chris Isidore is, but these people just kind of like run cover for or promote the Biden administration as much as possible, and just try to find the most positive spin they can put on anything, right? Well, I should have pulled up a graph of the gas prices, the national average from the past 2 years. It's just a funny way of trying to put a positive spin on bad information, right? I mean, yeah, good. I'm glad gas is cheaper than it was, because I live in Central Florida, and at the peak I was paying like $4, maybe a little bit more than that, per gallon, and I think it's sitting around $3.30, $3.40, maybe $3.20, something like that. So it has gone down, which is helpful. But to think of that as a raise, dude, $3.40 is still very high from where it was a year or two ago. And to try to think that that's a tax cut or a raise is hilarious. So now if gas prices go up, are they going to say, think of it as a tax increase or a pay cut? These people are goofy. And there's this meme. Gas went down 65 cents after going up $3. It's unbelievable. All right. anyways, what I mostly wanted to talk about tonight, and this is kind of a serious topic. Um, I mentioned Dave Smith is he's a podcast host, he's a comedian. He posted this video shortly after the birth of his son, which was almost a year ago now. And I've been meaning to do a video on this, and I was going to edit it and add my comments and stuff. It's just, I didn't get around to doing that, so I'm just kind of doing this live stream. I still may do that just because I think what he's saying is important. But it was like an hour-long podcast, and I did a first initial edit of that 50, 60-minute podcast and put it into like a, 15 to 17-minute video on my YouTube channel. Just put it private so no one could see it, because I was going to go back to it later, chop it up even more, because even that I thought was too long. So this is the video I'm linking to. It's on my channel. I actually tried to find the initial podcast and couldn't find it on his YouTube channel, at least real quick. If I find it, I'll link to it. So I don't know if he took that down intentionally, because it definitely was on there at one point in time, because that's how I downloaded it. So hopefully he doesn't mind this being out there. I don't think he would. He's a public figure. And what I'm going to say is I'm largely in agreement with him as well. So I'm going to have to jump around in this video a little bit, because I'm not going to play all 16, 17 minutes of it. And I put a couple timestamps on here written down. So let me just start right at the beginning real quick to set the stage here.
Whew, I'm a little uncomfortable to talk about this. Oh, by the way, I guess I should just preface everything's okay. Before, if I'm telling you this, everything, it looks like everything's going to be okay. So I don't want to get people's minds going in a crazy direction. But so my wife and I had our baby boy about 11 days ago on the 29th of September. At 11:55 p.m. And the last 11 days or so have been, some of the greatest days of my life, and without question, some of the most difficult days of my life. A few months back, we were at a sonogram, and we both noticed that the technician was spending an awful lot of time taking pictures of the baby's heart. Which is disconcerting. So we found out that day.
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm a big fan of Dave Smith, and you kind of feel like when you watch a podcaster or whatever long enough, you kind of feel like you know him a little bit, which I know, I don't really know him, but I kind of know him, because I've seen so many hours of him talking and stuff. So this was a solo podcast he did. And like I said, this was less than 2 weeks after the birth of his son. And it was emotional to listen to this entire podcast. I don't know how much of that is me just because I like the guy kind of thing. Or it's the story. I think it's really a combination of both. But essentially, I'll kind of skip this part. But his son had a heart defect, and it got missed initially. They knew this before the baby was going to be born, and it was initially misdiagnosed. They got a second opinion, and then they really figured out what was going on. Still something with the heart, and they knew he required surgery as soon as he was born. And then he kind of talks about how difficult that was for him and his wife, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's best if you hear this from him and again, I'm just kind of doing this for time's sake. Let me see if I can jump to. Let's see.
You know, you never like. There's no one you'll ever have as much gratitude toward. I mean, with the exception of my wife for giving me my 2 babies, it's you know, like there's the surgeon who performed the surgery. He'll pop in every now and then and just, you know, kind of like check on him, and you just like see this guy who, you know, saved your boy's life, and you just like got this thing where you're like, hey, do you want all my money or my house or a foot or a hand? Like, can I mow your lawn every day for the rest of my life? Like, what do you want? I mean, don't get me wrong, he's going to charge me a lot of money for it. It's not as if it's a free service, but everybody up there at the Columbia Presbyterian Children's Hospital is just incredible. I mean, some of them.
So, let me get to, yeah, that is, it's a lot. Let me get up to here. Let's see.
You don't know. I mean, surgery took it's like 8 hours. And just sitting there for 8 hours. And those 8 hours, I mean, they felt like months. I mean, it was just brutal. I thought some of the lead up to it was tough, and I thought I was kind of prepared mentally to go into it, but there's nothing like that time, man. Really hard. And a lot of the hardest part for me is watching how hard it was for my wife, and probably the hardest part, you know, is watching how hard it is on the baby. You know, for him to have to go through that, it just seems so wrong and so unfair. And I remember, so I came out of the room with my wife, and so they took the baby, and then I came out of the room, and I walked like down the hall, and then you see the room where the baby's in. They have like this little mini NICU that they set up down on the delivery floor before they transfer him up to the NICU. And I walk by and just see through the window, and there's like, I mean, there must have been like at least a dozen, maybe like 15, like doctors and nurses in the room with him. And it was just like, I mean, it's like the most sickening feeling. Like, man, was that rough. Yeah, so, but anyway, so.
Yeah, so he does a better job communicating this than I would, but, oh, man, I can't imagine. So I have one kid I have one son. He just turned 16, so this was 16 years ago. Somewhat relatable experience. Nothing on the level that he experienced here, but when my wife started going into labor, they noticed. I remember in this room, and we had been up for, you know, I don't know. I was up. We were both up for 24 hours straight, so I was getting pretty tired, and I only remember certain things during this time. But this particular thing I remember very well. We were sitting in the room, and they had this microphone on his heartbeat somehow playing in the room on a speaker, so we all heard it. And it was determined that she was going to have, and hopefully my wife doesn't mind me saying this, but and have an emergency C-section. And because his umbilical cord was wrapped around his shoulder, or something was going on there. Well, they had two, and this was up in Cleveland, Ohio. They had two surgery rooms where they did the C-sections, and both of them were occupied. So we had to wait. During that time, they had that speaker going with his heartbeat, and every time my wife had a contraction, we'd hear his normal heartbeat, doo-doom, 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 doo-doom. And when she had a contraction, it would get down to doom-doom, doom-doom, doom-doom. I can't tell you how, and this was like for an hour, hearing this, where every, I don't know how often she had contractions, but every couple of minutes, right? Oh, man, was that difficult. And I remember I had to go downstairs to the lobby because my parents were there at the hospital down in the lobby in the waiting room or whatever, because it was their first grandchild at the time. And I remember having to tell them what was going on, and I could barely get the words out. Because I was so nervous as to what was going on with my son, obviously, right? Again, this kind of story doesn't compare to what Dave went through here, and if you listen to his full thing, you'll get a better picture of what's going on. But I mean, an 8-hour surgery on the heart, which is kind of a miraculous thing with technology and innovation and these surgeries and medicine in general is amazing, right? So in any case, let me continue on to let's play a little bit more of this
So then,
before I jump ahead.
They came to give us an update. Things were like real touch and go there for a little while. So that was a whole thing. Man, for my wife, it was after just giving birth, and then you find out that things are like real risky. It's just so hard. So been through a lot of darkness over the last few days, but then also like the most beautiful thing ever when you find out that he's doing okay, and so it's good. It's so bonkers, man. It's a lot. It's a whole lot going on. But it looks like, at least it feels to me like we kind of got over the mountain and we're now on the way down.
Yeah, so as far as I know, it's almost a year later, maybe in September, I think is when this happened. It sounds like his son is still doing really well, which is just amazing. And let's play one more clip before I get to the main point that I want to discuss that he mentions later.
In this place where I do just feel like there's this kind of like there was this darkness and now this light afterward. Like I have a new lease on life, and I'm really kind of coming out of this very determined.
So you get the idea here. So let's go to this part right here. This is really the main gist of what I wanted to cover.
One of the things my son really taught me about what it is to be a man that I never learned from really any other experience in life in such a blatant kind of direct way was like there was a lot of opportunity in all of this to start feeling bad for myself and to just kind of give in to that, which is it's a powerful force, man. Feeling sorry for yourself. It's a really dark, powerful force that everyone is susceptible to. And you really have to make a conscious effort to not go down that path. And it was, I could like see it right in front of me, like this tempting thing. It's like, I don't know, something, out of like Lord of the Rings or something like that. Like,
So obviously I edited this video. I bleeped the swear words out because wanted to remove that. But let me play like another minute or two of this. So I know this is a longer clip, but trust me, it's worth it.
Fighting this temptation to just go with this force of like feeling how unfair this all is, or why did this have to happen to me, or like blaming God or blaming the world, or just being it's so unfair that like I'm such a great dad and I got to deal with this, like why can't I just have this one, but then like I'd see him and that he was fighting this little perfect baby who's never done anything wrong to anyone and just so doesn't deserve this, and he's fighting for his life and he's doing great, and it would almost just be like, yeah, dude, like that's not an option, because what does that do for anybody else? or myself. What does that do for anyone? It's like, okay, spend all day feeling sorry for yourself. That's something anyone can do. It's easy, and it's in a weird way like rewarding. Like it feels good to feel bad for yourself, because now you get to paint yourself as this like victim of a situation. That's easy. That takes nothing. But what takes something and is actually productive and is actually somewhat noble is to like not feel sorry for yourself and say, let me fight to like ease the burden on everyone else around me as much as I can.
Oh, man. So much good stuff there. So much wisdom from Dave. There's kind of a lot of angles that you can take on this, but let me start with the temptation or the rewarding feeling, he said, of giving in to this victimhood mentality, right? Absolutely, it's easy to fall into that. And there is something rewarding, rewarding about it. Like it feels good to feel bad, which is kind of crazy, right? And of course, you can kind of go down the path of everyone trying to feel like a victim nowadays, and maybe that's kind of part of that. But he has a good grip on what his outlook. Like, what good does that do anyone? What good does that do his wife? What good does that have to what good would that do his family? And he's exactly right. Now, I will say, and I hadn't listened to this in a while, but he's missing something. He's missing God and how God factors into all of these emotions and trials and feelings, right? And now, like I said, what he's saying is, I agree with it. I agree with his outlook, but he is missing that aspect of it. In fact, I couldn't imagine going through something like this without a relationship with God. And again, I'm kind of doing this off the top of my head, and I would be better served to do an actual video on this where I kind of get my thoughts more in order. I kind of decided to do this video an hour or two ago. But I do want to read just a couple verses that I feel are applicable to these emotions of when you're going through difficult times. And this is in Philippians 4. I'm going to read a couple verses here, 4, 6, and 7. I'm reading from the NLT. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Then you will experience God's peace. Which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. So that's what Dave's missing, is the peace. I think other translations say that surpasses all understanding. It doesn't even make sense how you would be able to have peace in a time of crisis like this. Further on in Philippians 4, it says in verse 11, "Not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing, or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. So, going back to verse 6, if we're in constant prayer and pray about everything and don't worry about anything, we will experience God's peace, which we can't even understand. And then it's about learning to be content, which flows from that peace. So in any case, like I said, maybe I'll do a separate video where I kind of condense this video. This is a 16-minute video. But it's just a powerful thing. You know, I think comedians like Dave Smith, and maybe comedians in general, or at least good ones, they see the world and are able to make high-level observations about it and condense it down, and often that's what makes it funny, right? You ever hear a comedian and they tell a joke and you're like, "Oh, that's so true. That's so true," because they're telling you things that are generally true, but they normally say it in a funny way. Obviously, he's not being funny here, but that same skill of trying to look at things from a high level and condense it down to life lessons or how to change your behavior going forward. And Dave is really good at that. You know, he just spends a lot of his time talking about politics, and he does that very well. He'll look at the current political situation, and he's not so focused on the one issue per se, but he'll take a step back and remind us of what happened 10 years ago and how that's relevant to what's going on now, and takes that bigger picture. And if you're interested, it's an awesome podcast. He's one of the best communicators, 1,000 times better than I am, on the ideas of liberty. And yeah, you know what I'm going to do next week? He has another video where he did an interview with someone, and he discusses God, and it is interesting. Now, this one was also, it's probably a year old as well, but it is really good. It's worth talking about, and I'll try to be better prepared for this as well. If you happen to have watched this far, thanks. Give Dave a listen if you haven't already. I will link to this video once I find it. And not everything is going to be so dark, or maybe not dark. I think this is a hopeful thing. That's why it's called Tragedy and Hope. And I think that was the name of this podcast episode. I could be wrong. Maybe that's why I couldn't find it. But this is a hopeful thing. We have hope. We have hope in Christ. But maybe not everything's going to be so deep. In any case, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a great night. Bye.